I've traced my heritage back to around 1915 when both my parents arrived in America. Both my parents' villages were pillaged in Mexico during the Mexican Revolution, thereby causing my parents to immigrate to America. Some lessons that I learned early on is that greed and lies could lead to war. People can't seem to get along. Rodney King said it the best: why can't we all get along? I was born in Downey, California on September 4th, 1944, and lived in Norwalk from childhood until now. I was a communications specialist in the Air Force. Just like the church has its rock in the Apostle Peter, the rock in our family was my mother, whose name was Petra. She kept me on the straight and narrow. My first 20 years of life was idyllic. There was no fighting, drinking, drugs, womanizing in my family. My siblings and I have never even quarreled. My parents were married over 50 years. In fact, all my aunts and uncles were married over 50 years. In January 2017, Chris and I will have been married 50 years. One of the worst things I recall doing after I was married was purchasing a paint sprayer that I knew was $359 for the price of $59 because the cashier made a mistake. I was so racked with guilt and couldn't live with myself that I took it back the very next day. I do believe that in doing things that are wrong, it opens the door to other indiscretions. I eventually began reading Playboy, smoked, drank, and lusted in my heart. My idyllic life began to give way to different trials. One trial was 10 years ago when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Also, Chris was diagnosed with breast cancer several years back. She's fine now. However, the worst trial that hurt me the most was when my daughter Jeannie was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 15. I questioned God during my own trials, but especially during Jeannie's trials. Jeannie, of course, is now fine and healthy. When she became a Christian 20 years ago, I didn't like what I saw. Why? Because I didn't like how Jeannie became a humble person after she became a Christian. I loved being proud. I was proud to be proud. But ultimately, Jeannie did win us over with her life. Also, what I admired most about the church she was attending was I saw the love, the camaraderie in the church, and that people helped out one another. I really loved the diversity of the church. That intrigued me. Ever since my parents immigrated to America until I became part of this church, I was only surrounded by Latinos and had no other races in our family tree. Although I was a believer of God, I also had a lot of doubts and questioned God a lot, almost to the point of not believing in God. I blamed everyone for my doubts except myself. However, I finally realized it was my fault because although I was a historian and I read many books, one book I did not read was the Bible. I did not see the Bible as a history book. I felt it was hard to understand, but eventually I understood and accepted the responsibility for not reading the Bible and knowing the truth sooner. I thought of the Latin phrase mea culpa, which basically means acknowledging fault. Whenever Jeannie or her friends would ask Chris and me to study the Bible, I would tell them that I am on the 5-year plan. The 5-year plan stretched out to forever. Dick and Anna would ask us to study the Bible, and I would tell them I'm still on the 5-year plan. Finally, in 2009, I ran across Tom O'Brien and I told him I was ready to study the Bible. So together with Joe Garcia, Miles Branson, Tom O'Brien, and Edmund Sapinoso, we studied the Bible, and I was baptized on October 4th, 2009. When Rodney King said, "Why can't we all get along?" I realized that to change the world, I needed to change people one at a time. By the way, I always felt guilty because the G's would invite us over to their small group and we would attend but turn them down when they asked us to study the Bible, and we ended up studying with others. So I'm making it up to them by having her share my testimony. Some special highlights of my Christianity are that when I was sick and in the hospital, Sean and Julie Lee, who barely knew me, came to visit me. Also, every time Ron Park sees me, she kneels before me and prays with me. I also really appreciate Stephen Wright and Vince Robertson in helping me around the house. They come over to read the Bible with me. Stephen helps answer a lot of my questions from the Bible. He calls me higher with his sharing of the scriptures. I also admire Rick and Donna Mark and all that they do for us as a church. As I progressively have become weaker in my body, I realize that I could do less and less as far as combining faith with deeds. Yet, I desire to serve until I can't serve anymore. Time is not on my side. In the book of James, it states, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." The trials in my life have drawn me closer to reaching out to God and has helped me to face anything in life like Chris's cancer, Jeannie's cancer, and my cancer and Parkinson's disease and still feel blessed. What I love about God is I look forward to heaven. I look forward to being able to see my little brother, James Delbert, who passed away when he was just a few months old. If I were to go back in time to do things over, I would find God sooner. I want to be remembered as a great storyteller. I want to be remembered as someone who has helped others out spiritually and that I have shared God with them. I want to be remembered as someone that loved people and that was hospitable. My advice for others is to know where you come from so you can move forward. Stay on the straight and narrow with God. You have to keep persevering so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. God has given me trials throughout my life. Now, I am prepared to face my daily trials and consider it pure joy just to be a Christian.